Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to return to Oil and Money Conference and to address such a distinguished gathering on a number of challenges that either influence today's global energy industry or cast a shadow on it. There is no doubt that we are living through some very interesting times with new and old problems and challenges from which our industry has never been immune. Tensions in many parts of the world and the prospect of a trade war between two largest economies in the world are major factors that can impact energy prices and demand growth. Some analysts have voiced concern that a slowdown in the world economic growth will have a negative impact on energy demand. But judging from history, the world has always found a way of making sure that such developments do not stand in the way of growth and prosperity. We, both people and governments, are placing importance on the cost of energy and its impact on our personal lives, as well as on the economic growth and stability of our countries. Therefore, it is a matter of economic sense that the choice of the most of our energy sources is perhaps determined by price. However, unprecedented climate conditions are coming to the forefront more than ever, including mean temperatures, seasonal cycles, and extreme events. Concerns for the environment and the survival of our planet has become a daily part of our reality check, which is driving more and more people to call for cleaner alternatives to high-emission fuels. Therefore, we need to reach the right balance of reliable and secure energy sources, which maintain our growth needs, while at the same time alleviates our environmental concerns. This is why we believe that natural gas is the destination fuel in the energy transition. It's versatile, it's flexible, and it's economic, as well as being the cleanest fossil fuel. And I believe that no other energy source can boast the combination of all these four qualities. Such qualities are the reason countries around the world are turning to gas to enhance their economic and industrial development. It's not just important for the power generation and industrial sector, but also to the transportation sector. This is why we have signed an agreement with Shell last month to join forces to establish a joint venture to provide global LNG bunkering services for any of the 80,000 ships navigating the seas, moving people, products, and merchandise. This will provide critical support for the International Maritime Organization's directives to cut sulfur levels in maritime fuels to 0.5% in 2020. The State of Qatar is also working with many countries around the world to ensure the security of their energy supplies and the sustainability of their economic growth. Just over a month ago, we signed an agreement in Brussels that would enhance our presence and business in Zeebrugge LNG terminal for decades to come. A week later, we reaffirmed our strong commitment to strengthening the security, reliability, and flexibility of gas supplies into Europe as we celebrated 10 years of operations in the Adriatic LNG terminal in Italy. And only last night, it was my honor to join the 10-year anniversary celebration of South Hook LNG terminal here in London, which is capable of processing around 20% of the UK's daily demand of natural gas. We're working with more countries across the globe to ensure the security of their energy supplies and the sustainability of their economic growth. We're also working with customers, industry players, stakeholders for the sustainable, affordable, and secure energy supplies for all. And at the same time, we're also dedicating great efforts to produce the industry's most environmentally sustainable LNG. We see this as our responsibility and commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, the State of Qatar energy sector is taking significant steps towards implementation of a long-term climate and environmental sustainability strategy. We have also made significant investments to upgrade and retrofit a large number of boilers, heaters, and gas turbines, generators in our facilities to comply with the most stringent stack emission limits, resulting in more than 50% reduction in NOx and SOx emissions. Last year, in recognition of our environmental effort, Qatar has topped the GCC region in the 2018 Environmental Performance Index, demonstrating the country's positive performance in the field of environment protection and the sustainable development. Most recently, I'm happy to announce for the first time ever that we have successfully commissioned the facility in Qatar. This facility is fully operational as we speak and is the largest CO2 recovery and sequestration facility in the MENA region, with the capacity to inject 2.1 million tons of CO2 per annum. Ladies and gentlemen, we strongly believe that for decades to come, gas will continue to be the fuel of choice as a clean and sustainable source of energy that achieves a balance between fulfilling the global energy need and the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel. Our new North Field LNG expansion project that will produce 32 million tons per annum annually is at the heart of this vision. This mega project will enhance our ability and flexibility to meet additional global demand, while also helping the world shift to a less carbon-intensive energy. In line with our sustainability strategy, the project has set itself a challenging goal of achieving the highest environmental standard to reduce emission and waste to the bare minimum, by applying the best available industry technology money can buy and deploying the highest efficiency design. With respect to the greenhouse gas emission, we are investing hundreds of millions of dollars in our new North Field expansion project to apply technologies that will result in 25% reduction of greenhouse gas emission compared to similarly designed facilities through substantial reduction of fuel gas consumption and through capturing and re-injecting CO2 extracted from the feed gas. With such new carbon capture and storage projects, Qatar's LNG industry will be capturing and sequestering more than 5 million tons of CO2 annually by 2025. But we are not stopping there. In my capacity as Minister of Energy, I am making sure that energy efficiency and renewable energy are an important component of our sustainable future for generations to come. By the end of this year, we will start construction of the first solar power plant in Qatar, and one of the largest of its kind built in one shot, producing 700 to 800 megawatts of power by the year 2021, which represents about 10% of Qatar's peak demand of this summer. Ladies and gentlemen, we in the state of Qatar do not only share the global concern over global warming and climate change, but we are also shouldering our responsibility in a transition that helps protect our planet. I would like to use this distinguished platform and conclude my remarks by calling on all those concerned to work together in one focused objective, to protect our global environment, while at the same time preserving the cornerstone of our economic and industrial growth and development. To conclude, I'd like to thank Energy Intelligence for their kind invitation, and thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Saad.
Yeah.
I'm very happy you talked about environmental issues, but I think all of you that's been following Qatar Petroleum in the last year has realized that they've been quite busy and quite active, to put it mildly. They have moved forward on a giant petrochemical plant in Qatar and in the US. They've greenlit a LNG expansion project in the US, or an LNG mega project in the US, and of course this sort of North Field expansion, which everybody is talking about. So that's always where I like to start, I have to say, because that's what people want to talk about, but we'll get to the environmental stuff in a minute. So 2019 is almost over. We thought we might see some progress on partners for these mega trains, 4 of them, 32 million tons. How's it going, and when might we hear about some partnerships?
You don't like what we're doing alone? We're progressing.
Well, this would be news if it's going to be alone.
Yeah. Well, that's one option, as I continuously stated, that one option is going alone. We have selected a few good partners that have worked with us, and we have a process that we have rolled out to select few, and we're basically going to look at the offers that we get and decide whether we're going to have partners in these projects or not.
Okay. And what about the timeline? When do you think a decision?
We're going to, I mean, all the contracts are already in place. We've awarded the rig contracts. Most of the APC contracts have been awarded. The onshore contracts are being evaluated as we speak. So by the end of the year, we'll have a decision and we'll proceed. So in parallel with that, you know, if we get done with really the process of selecting partners, and we have partners that we select, then they will just jump in, if you will, and join the train that's moving. So we're not in a hurry.
Why do you need partners in the first place? I mean, at this point, you've done everything.
Yeah.
EPC contracts are out there. You can market your LNG. What's the importance of partners?
Again, it's what added value do they bring? And that's what we're trying to basically have them demonstrate. So when we have added value that we get, it could be something that we want to do outside Qatar. It could be swaps. It could be really, you know, some support that we'd get in marketing. It's offtake. It could be a lot of things. It's not just one thing that they could be offering. So we'd see the value for that. If it's something that we don't see valuable and we could do alone, we wouldn't entertain it.
Okay. I mean, you did a deal this year with Chevron where you signed a big petrochemical plant in Qatar, and then a few weeks later, you were in the States, you signed another big petrochemical plant in the United States. Is this the sort of relationship that you see as sort of adding value?
Think, you know, I mean, for example, with Chevron Phillips, we've had a very long-term relationship with them. We had a process for a petrochemical plant that we wanted in Qatar, and we were working also on what added value. One of them was having another project in the US, so we worked both in parallel, and it happened that we agreed to proceed with both. So that's a win-win for both sides, but that's one of the models that you could look at. But Chevron Phillips is a great partner. Chevron is a good company that we work with, you know, one of the owners of Chevron Phillips. So that's a model that you could look at.
Okay. And what about the timing of these trains? When will all 4 come to market at the same time, or will it be phased over time?
You know, it will start 2024, but it will depend a lot on the contractors. I mean, we have 3 very capable consortiums that are bidding for this job, and you know, they will come up with what they think is most efficient. But normally these would come 3 to 6 months staggered or something like that. But it's difficult to say now until we finish all the contracts.
Okay. I mean, when we look out to sort of...
But it's on track, basically. It's just
okay.
the construction scheduling that will determine some of that, but it's on track.
Okay. Because when we look out into the future, we see a lot of LNG projects coming online sort of in the middle of 2020s. And at least by our calculations, we see the market being potentially oversupplied at that point. I mean, this is what we're looking at, but how do you see the market?
If I can make the comment general, in your opening speech, you talked about oil prices and the dynamics changing, and it could be a lower oil prices for longer, and the same could be said about gas due to just the abundant supply or more projects being sanctioned and so on. The way we look at it is we're just focused on what we do. We compete with ourselves. We don't compete with anybody. I mean, some people talk about Qatar #1, Australia #1. I don't really pay attention to that. My focus and our focus as a team in the oil and gas industry is how can we be the lowest cost producer and have KPIs that keep us in first quartile in every business that we have. And then we're price takers. If the price goes so low, it will take out so many people out of business that I'll always have a market. Yeah. So if I keep focusing on other people and what they do, I will never do anything. So we are not worried about the additional projects coming online. Actually, on the gas side, I am excited and happy every time I see somebody signing a gas deal, even if it's not us. Because to us, we want to advocate more gas. We think it's the cleanest fuel, as I mentioned. And more gas and more people using gas is good for the gas business. Anything good for the gas business is good for us.
Okay. I mean, so if I could sum it up, because a lot of companies are dealing with the same issue around oil, obviously. There's a lot more questions about when oil demand will peak, and if a lot of people are producing a lot of oil, who's going to be the last man standing? So it seems your approach to sort of long-term gas demand is just be the lowest cost producer, and then you'll be the last man standing, pretty much.
And the same with oil. I mean, people say oil is over and the peak oil and all that. I think, we talk about automotives and so on, where there is a big, transition to other sources of energy, whether it's electric cars or CNG or whatever you would use. But oil is not only produced for cars. Oil goes into industry. It goes into a lot of things that we use around the world. So oil is not over. I mean, so I think people have this. It's abundant. There is, U.S. has become a game changer in oil and in gas, but that's reality, and people will grow, and hopefully trade wars will calm down, and things will get better, and economies will grow, and people are growing, and we'll need energy.
Yeah.
We just have to be much more, we pay more attention to what we do on the environmental side while we're doing it, whether it's on oil or gas, and I think all companies and everybody is realizing that's something very important that we're doing. And I think most companies that I know and we deal with have a strategy and see that as something that's very important for them to tackle. And nobody's just saying, we don't care about that.
Yeah. I think I asked you this last year, but we spoke to Ben van Beurden recently about sort of Shell's transformation into a company that's focusing more on gas, obviously, and more on electricity as well. I mean, they sort of very prominently said they want to be the largest electricity producer in the world. In essence, this is securing your kind of markets. Do you see QP going downstream, investing in sort of power? Do you see a future there?
No, we have companies that are fuel subsidiaries and companies that we partially own that look at power, just pure power plays, if you will, outside Qatar. But as far as we're concerned, in some instances where you go to a country and they want a package, of gas, regasification, and then power, and they want to buy power, so they want somebody to do that. We would get into a consortium to do something like that, but electricity just generating electricity as a focus is definitely not our focus.
Okay.
We think that core business is oil and gas and chemicals, and we focus on that. But what we need to get done for a business, we would get it done through consortiums, either our subsidiaries or somebody else.
Well, so let's talk a bit about the energy transition and how sort of QP is positioning itself, because you made some interesting comments just now about capturing CO2 as part of a kind of priority. Obviously, this has cost you more money. You conceivably don't have protesters outside QP headquarters demanding this happens. Why is this important for sort of you or QP?
Yeah, you see, we have been driving, really. I was head of upstream maybe 10 years ago. We put a strategy of reducing emissions and flaring as much as possible. And we don't have continuous flaring, but sometimes in shutdowns and things that you need to do to reduce. We have jetty boil-off that happens when you load ships. So we did $1 billion worth of jetty boil-off gas project to get rid of really methane emission, if you will. We have joined the group of companies that are looking at methane emission. Environment is very, very important for us. And it's something that if you look at what His Highness the Emir did, just in the United Nations climate change accord that they had with President Macron and so on, and they donated Qatar donated $100 million for some of the islands that are affected. It's something serious that we take in Qatar from our leadership and conservation of the environment and how We see that, and also in our companies. So if you look at what we announced, as you know, maybe Alex and I go a long way as we've known each other, and he knows that the way we try to work in QP is we work on things and then we announce results. We don't talk about what we're doing during the time. So what I announced today regarding the CO2 sequestration, we are actually, as we speak, taking about 2 million tons annually. We've started this summer. We're collecting it from basically the LNG facilities that we have, and then it's being injected into a deep aquifer in country. We're also investing, hundreds of millions in the design from the beginning in the no-feed expansion. It was already designed, and the contract now is going to be awarded, and we're drilling wells that will sequester the rest of it when the production of NFE starts. So we're doing it. We don't have a regulation that asks us to do it. We don't have protesters that do it, but we have responsibility that we believe forces us to look at this hard and make sure that we do the right thing for the people living in Qatar and for the world in general. So this is something we take very seriously. And as you said, we don't have to do this. This is not a money generator. It's something to do. In addition to that, the 5 million that I talked about, we have a project that's a pilot project. I didn't talk about it here because it's additional CO2 that we're looking at, where we're piloting for enhanced oil recovery, but I don't take credit for enhanced oil recovery and sequestering CO2 if I'm trying to make money of it, in my view at least. But that's a big project. We're building a large pipeline across the country to take CO2 to the Khan oil field, and this is for something that we're piloting for maybe 10 years down the road, that we would have enhanced oil recovery there. So we're doing a lot in that regard, and I think it's very important that everybody does that.
Yeah. So again, this is a reaction to, or this is a state initiative or one of your initiatives? Because I think what a lot of the industry is struggling with is figuring out how to commercially meet the environmental goals while running a business. Yeah. And when you don't have to, when you don't have shareholders in the company itself saying you have to do this, or you have pressure from society, why go down this path?
It's the responsible thing to do, and I have support from our leadership to do it, so I'm able to do it. I have the drive to do it. I want to do it. Our leadership team wants to do it. So everybody in the industry is very supportive of doing that. So as an oil and gas community, we want to do it, and we have the leadership support to do it. And I actually didn't know about the accord that His Highness was going to sign, and the donation they were going to do in the United Nations. But it just shows you this. I hear His Highness personally talking about the environment all the time. This is something that he's very fixed on, that he's very interested in looking at us doing a much better job. People talk about our emissions or CO2 per capita. We're a tiny country. We're producing the largest in the world. So if you just divide numbers, it looks bad. But actually, we're not that bad.
Okay.
But everybody can skew the numbers as they wish.
Yeah. Well, let me ask one more question, then we'll go to the audience for some questions. So think up what you'd like to ask the minister. And this is a bit more somber subject. I mean, the attacks on Saudi Arabia sort of showed how vulnerable oil and gas facilities can be to this sort of asymmetrical warfare or attacks by drones or sort of potentially even missiles. Surely this hits home for you. Ras Laffan is a giant sort of industrial complex. How are you thinking about sort of security in the wake of these sort of attacks?
First, we condone any attacks on Saudi Arabia or any country and on just any place in the world, oil facilities or other, because human lives are involved, and it's something that nobody would like to happen anywhere in the world. So we're really not seeing this as something that should happen to anybody or anybody should take actions like that. Oil and gas facilities have been really left alone in a lot of conflicts, even in wars and things, so they haven't been touched. So this is a different kind of evolution of things that could happen, if you will, from a military point of view. We're not doing, I mean, the protection of our facilities is the responsibility of our military. We think that all military in the world protect their national assets and strategic assets, and we're no different. But it's just that the attacks that happened were quite disturbing, really, and hopefully this is the last one.
Yeah. So it's kind of being viewed as a one-off, potentially as a abnormal sort of way to sort of conduct foreign policy and so, or political risk.
Yeah, I hope it is. Yeah, I hope it is.
Good. Let's go to the audience for a few questions. Front row, please introduce yourself, and here comes the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jordi Izio, part of the Leaders for Tomorrow program and a geologist in Harvard University. I'd like to know, first, thank you for the speech. It was truly interesting and full of interesting information. And I'd like to know what will be the policy of Qatar and Qatar Petroleum about companies in the oil and gas not willing to shape their industry and strategies to fit the energy transition. Do you expect to have consequences, maybe questioning some partnership with these companies?
Yeah, you mean if they don't have a strategy on emissions and okay. No, I think yeah, I think, and I get the gist of your question. I mean, it definitely we want to work with companies that have the same responsibility in that regard, if you will, that we have. And if you look around the industry, all the major players that we deal with have either rolled out a program of what they want to do or are going to roll out a program, and they've discussed this. So I think everybody is realizing that this is something that we need to take and have front and center as something that has a strategy that we can deliver on. And everybody I think, or the majority have already announced numbers and targets. That we're working on targets on methane emission that we will announce soon. We're working on a lot of things, and most companies are doing the same thing. Companies are people, and people are responsible, and when they see things that need to be fixed, they react. So I think everybody's going to react in the oil and gas industry, and I think most of them have.
Okay. Right here.
Thank you, Minister, for your remarks. My name's Larry Marks. I'm an independent energy consultant from Canada. What's your view or forecast on more investment in gas to liquids?
Gas to liquids?
Yes.
Gas to liquids is, I think, a difficult area to look at going forward, mainly due to what Alex said regarding oil price. Gas to liquid works in high oil prices. On lower oil prices, it doesn't work as much. I think the transportation of gas has become easier now than in the past, or more, let's say, more abundant LNG and LNG projects being, coming up around the world. So, and the liquid requirements are not as much, or not increasing as much. It's still increasing, but not as rapid a pace. So you need an environment, is a highly capital-intensive project, and needs higher oil prices to be sustained. So I don't think much will happen in GTL on a large scale.
I mean, let me just pick you up on that, because if you think that oil prices are sort of in this new era of sort of being lower, I mean, most of your LNG contracts are tied to sort of long-term oil prices. So do you then expect that the gas prices, or the amount that you'll be getting from LNG, will be lower going forward? Is that kind of part of your projections?
As I said, I don't focus on price. I focus on cost. So price, I don't focus on. I mean, literally, I'm not just saying it as lip service. This is really how we think. We want to be first quartile, cheapest, most efficient, safest, most efficient operator in the world. And we let the market determine price. Crude prices, if you talk to any oil and gas company, we understand, we can take care of risk in projects, risk in construction, reservoir risk, and so on. We know how to manage that. And we alleviate any risk there. The only risk that we really take is oil price risk. We're used to taking oil price risk, and it's up and down. I've been in the industry for more than 30 years, and we've seen how many cycles. To me, I don't worry about oil prices. Linking to crude is something we understand and we can take risk with. In some areas, you have to deal with indices. In some areas in Europe and so on, and we will deal with all kinds of markets, but we always prefer crude linked.
Okay. Another question? Yeah, here.
Good morning, Your Excellency. Abu Bakr from Air Products. What will be the destiny of the Qatar 3 project? Qatar 3 helium project.
Qatar 3?
Qatar 3, yes.
Yes.
What will be the destiny? As from the helium market, we're still expecting some progress. And as far as we know, there is a dispute ongoing between QP and Hyundai. So from the helium market perspective, any destiny or any progress expected from your side?
Things are going well. I mean, there's no issue. You expected me to say something different. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? There's one in the back over here. Okay, well, yeah, we'll do here because you're close.
His Excellency, very inspiring to hear your plans on the CO2 sequestration and reduction. Can you maybe comment on, from your perspective, from technology side, do you see any gaps in technology, which technology or industry should focus on to further support this cause?
I mean, the technology is available, to capture CO2 and sequester, but of course, how deep can you go in feed gas CO2 is much easier, but things of, machinery and equipment is much harder to capture and sequester. But I think technology is becoming better, it's becoming more efficient, the emissions are less than before. With every iteration of new, compressors, something gets improved. And I think technology will evolve where you can capture more at a more reasonable price from much more than you could today. So I think it will evolve with time. But it's an expensive thing to do.
Got one over here.
Thank you, Minister. I just wanted some clarification on a point you made about the construction contracts. Rafiq Latta from the Energy Intelligence. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Am I to understand that there will be one construction contract award for all 4 of the trains? And if so, what sort of cost reductions are you expecting for this? And could we have a sort of ballpark investment figure for this whole process of the North Field?
You want to know the fiscals and the gas prices and everything? No?
I'm very greedy.
Okay, just checking. Okay. Actually, the cost I'm not going to get into, but we expect to have the cheapest LNG cost in the world. We're driving this to, as I said, I worry about capital cost, operating cost. I don't worry about anything else. So to us, we're trying to drive this as low as we can. Regarding your question, there are 4 trains. The main contract is going to go to one contractor for building the trains, but you have also facilities and helium plant and loading arms. Different contracts that are different packages, about 4 packages that are out. So the actual LNG trains will be given to one contractor, if that's...
Okay, very good. We probably have time for one more, and then we're sort of out. Oh, we've got some questions over here. Sure. Yes. We'll take two
I have
more.
all the time for you. You manage the time.
Well, I'm trying.
I'm here for you.
It's my job.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, His Excellency. My name is Mako Kawada from Japan Oil and Gas National Company. My question is about upstream. I understand the QPs are very active in Africa, like Kenya, Namibia, those kind of countries. Could you share the upstream strategy of QP?
Upstream strategy? Yeah, okay. We worked on a strategy a few years ago on looking at how we can go from about 4.8 million barrels oil equivalent to 6.5 million barrels oil equivalent. We have put a strategy where some of it will be from Qatar and what we're doing in Qatar, and some of it will be looking at exploration outside the country. So we've looked at areas we've identified around the world. Brazil is a big focus, Argentina, Mexico. We have gone, as you mentioned, to South Africa, Mozambique, Namibia, Kenya, and others that we're looking at, Morocco. So, and we're looking at more countries, and some we will see us also expand in the same countries that we're in. So these are areas that we look at, and we're here for the long term. What I tell our leadership team is I am designing QP to be the best company for the next CEO. I'm not in a hurry. Okay, so exploration is a long-term business. It's it's something that we'll do for the long term. So I think the next CEO should be very excited. He'll have the best benefit, not me.
Okay, last question, I think up front here, and then we'll have to wrap it up. Although we could spend a lot of time.
No, up to you.
This is Clara Tan, Energy Intelligence. I have one question on your comment about going downstream related to Pakistan. First of all, how close are you to signing your second long-term contract with Pakistan? And second, are you still part of a consortium to build a regas terminal and power plant in Pakistan with some of your partners? Thank you.
Okay. We're working actively in Pakistan. Pakistan is an important country that has a huge demand of gas. So definitely that's one of the focus countries for us. We have been working with companies and authorities there to expand our presence there, but I will not get into how we're doing that. Thank you.
Diplomatic as always. Okay. Thank you, Minister, for your comments. It was really a delight. Very interesting hearing about your plans, the environmental plans. We always want to hear more about your new plans, so we hope you come back next year and tell us all about it.
Stay tuned.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.